Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really serious situation unfolding between Thailand and Cambodia, a border conflict that's escalated fast. Our aim here is to get past the breaking news alerts and really understand the core details, what's driving this, and, well, why it matters. We're basing this on a really useful excerpt we found called Thailand-Cambodia Border Conflict, a diplomatic tightrope. It helps cut straight to the chase.
Absolutely. And it's crucial, to remember these things rarely come out of nowhere. What seems like a sudden crisis often has really deep historical threads. That's what we want to unpack today. The layers beneath the headlines, the history that's, well, erupting again.
Okay, so let's start there. The source makes it clear, the absolute core, the flashpoint, is territory that's been disputed for a long, long time. But we're not talking empty jungle here. It specifically mentions these ancient temple sites, places like Preah Vihear, Tamon.
Right.
Why these spots? What makes these old temples the focus of such modern fighting?
That really is the heart of it. For both Thailand and Cambodia, these aren't just archaeological sites. They're wrapped up in national pride, historical narratives, centuries of claims and counterclaims. Think about Preah Vihear. It's hugely significant to Khmer history, Cambodian identity. So for Cambodia, any question over it feels existential. And for Thailand, too, there are strong historical connections and nationalist feelings tied to the region. It's about heritage sovereignty, much more than just the land itself.
So deeply symbolic. And it didn't stay symbolic, did it? The escalation timeline the source describes is pretty alarming. It mentions a specific deadly skirmish starting things off back on May 27th. And then boom. By late July 2025, we're talking full-scale fighting.
Yeah.
How does it jump from a skirmish to that so quickly?
Well, the intensity described is telling. It wasn't just border guards trading shots. We're talking artillery, rockets, even drone strikes. The source even mentions Thai F-16s conducting airstrikes. That signals a major military commitment, way beyond a simple border clash.
F-16s, wow. So that suggests the initial incident just shattered any existing, maybe fragile understanding.
Exactly. It suggests the underlying tension and mistrust were so high that once the shooting started, both sides felt compelled to escalate very quickly using serious military force. Restraint just seemed to evaporate.
And inevitably, this kind of fighting has a terrible human cost. The source gives some stark numbers, over 30 people killed, and it stresses mostly civilians. That's tragic.
It is, and that's likely just the confirmed count, The reality on the ground could be worse.
Beyond the fatalities, there's this huge displacement. Over 150,000 people forced from their homes. Just imagine that upheaval.
That level of displacement tells you about the intensity and the fear. People don't leave everything behind unless they feel they absolutely have to. And the diplomatic reaction was just as fast and severe, like a mirror to the fighting.
How so?
Well, you had both countries immediately expelling each other's ambassadors, borders slammed shut, public accusations of aggression flying back and forth.
So relations basically collapsed overnight.
Pretty much. It shows how fragile things were. And importantly, it makes finding a way back, finding a way to de-escalate, incredibly difficult when the formal channels are cut off like that.
Right. With that level of hostility and the real human suffering involved, it's not surprising the international community is paying attention. The source mentions the U.S., China, and ASEAN, the regional bloc, all calling for calm, urging restraint. Does that external pressure actually help much here?
It can, sometimes. Having major powers and regional bodies engaged puts pressure on both sides. The source notes that ceasefire talks are actually happening now in Malaysia.
Okay, so talks are underway. That's something positive.
It is, definitely. Dialogue is always better than fighting. But, and this is a big but, the source points out the level of mutual distrust is still incredibly high. So even while they're talking, the situation remains extremely fragile. These talks are happening on very shaky ground. One wrong move, one more incident, and it could all fall apart again.
That highlights just how deep this goes, doesn't it? If we step back, connect the dots. This isn't just about temples or a border line drawn on a map from years ago.
Not at all. You have to look at the deeper historical tensions. These disputes have simmered, sometimes boiled over, for generations. And crucially, you have nationalism. On both sides, there's immense domestic pressure. Leaders can't afford to look weak on issues tied so strongly to national identity and heritage.
So giving ground, even for the sake of peace, becomes politically very dangerous at home.
Precisely. Any concession, especially around sites like Preah Vihear, could be framed as a betrayal. So this deep history, this potent nationalism, it creates this incredibly difficult knot. It explains why resolving this is so tough, even with international mediation. The roots are just that deep.
Okay, so to recap for everyone listening, We've seen how disputed ancient temples became the flashpoint, how quickly a skirmish escalated into intense fighting with heavy weapons. We've touched on the terrible human cost, lives lost, massive displacement, and the diplomatic breakdown, the accusations, the border closures. And now, these fragile ceasefire talks happening against a backdrop of, well, profound historical mistrust and potent nationalism. It's a really complex and dangerous situation for the region, and especially for those caught in the middle.
It really is. And it leaves us with a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it? When you have these deep historical grievances, this powerful nationalism intertwined with national identity, what does it actually take for countries like these, with such linked and often painful pasts, to break free from these cycles of conflict, especially when the world is watching, when talks are technically happening? How much does history dictate the future in these situations?